Hey there, welcome back to the show. I'm Nicole Holland, your host, and today with me is Juliet Starrett. She is the co-founder and CEO of MobilityWOD.com, which has revolutionized how athletes think about human movement and athletic performance, as well as CEO of San Francisco CrossFit, one of the first 50 CrossFit affiliates. Before turning her attention to the business full-time, Juliet had a successful career as an attorney practicing complex commercial litigation at Reed Smith for nearly 8 years. She's also the co-author of the Wall Street Journal bestseller, Deskbound, and successfully collaborated on and developed the marketing strategy and plan for the New York Times bestsellers, Becoming a Subtle Leopard and Ready to Run. It's such a pleasure to have her with us. She is
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Somebody I truly love. We just met not that long ago and already is one of my favorite people. So Juliet, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for being here. I feel the same way about you, and I'm honored that you are having me on today.
Well, awesome. Then let's kick it off quickly because we yapped for a bit before getting started. So I want to make sure we get lots of good stuff in here. The first thing I want to ask you about is actually not how you started your business, but it's about being attacked by a hippopotamus in Zimbabwe in 97 and surviving that. So this was whitewater rafting, right?
Well, this was actually canoeing, and I'll start by saying that this story has really helped me anytime I have to do like an icebreaker game, an awkward corporate icebreaker game, because I'm always like, okay, I can say I was attacked. It's like when you have to do like 2 truths and a lie or something. But yes, in my 20s, for 5 years, I spent my time as a professional whitewater athlete. Traveling around the world, competing in whitewater rafting and kayaking events. And the first year I made the US team, our race was on the Zambezi River in Africa. And so we did the event. We were there for 3.5 weeks, almost a month. And we ended up winning the world championships, which was great. But we were all already in Africa, and we thought we should spend some time safaring and doing, seeing the land and some animals. So we took a plane to the lower Zambezi River and booked a canoe safari. And I want to start by saying that one giant red flag is that the locals actually don't really go anywhere near the river. In fact, they don't even really go like 10 feet from the river. And, as a white traveler from afar, we somehow didn't really compute a lot of those things. We did start to get a sense of what we were in for. So it was a 5-day canoe safari where we'd be canoeing down, no rapids, but, just beautiful scenery, and you definitely get beautiful access to wildlife, and it's remote. No rapids, just, flowing wide rivers. Beautiful scenery, but we do the safety talk at the beginning of the trip. And, this was a red flag because our guide tells us, he spends the entire safety talk talking about hippos, how dangerous they are. He literally gives us statistics on how many people they kill, which is they kill more humans than any other animal on earth. They're like the nastiest little people. And he then shows off his machete and 2 guns he's brought in his canoe. So already I'm like, there's something about it's not feeling great to me. But, at this point, I'm 27 years old, and I am all about like adventure. So I'm in. And by the way, my mom has on this trip as well, because she has come over to Africa to watch this event and then has come on the safari with us. So we shove off, we're 2 days in, we get to this sort of point where the river was really wide, almost a mile wide, but then it starts to go into these channels, right? So there's little islands and the river becomes very channelized. And our guide literally says to us, hey guys, do you guys want to go through Hippo City or the Hippo Bronx? And I, raise my canoe paddle and I'm like, neither. I don't really want to go through either, because there were definitely some heavy moments. Like there were points where you could see huge wakes from 30-foot crocodiles, you know, running underwater. You don't see the crocodile, but you see them creating a huge wake. It just, something about it like was very nerve-wracking the whole trip. And so I raised my hand for Hippo City, and some other of my teammates are like, Hippo Bronx, whatever. And so we go through, the river becomes very channelized, and we're going through, and there are hippos everywhere, and nobody is talking. Like, it feels very heavy. And I'm just paddling along, minding my own business, and I take a paddle stroke, and I look, and literally there is the hippo mouth coming up out of the water towards me. And it is literally as big as I am explaining to you. You know, they weigh 4,000 to 5,000 pounds. And, you know, when you see them in the zoo, they've sawed off their teeth, but in the wild, they have teeth that are this long, like knives. And subtext, you know, hippos are vegetarians, but they are super territorial and they are pissed. And it's amazing because they look like these giant underwater cows, but in the water, they can move really fast. Like, they can get serious momentum. So this hippo had obviously started running towards us under the water and then come up underneath our canoe. And what the guide had told us is, look, if you get attacked by a hippo in your canoe, what you want to do is, and knocked out of your boat, what you want to do is swim away from your boat, because ultimately they're really territorial. And hopefully for you, they will continue attacking the canoe and not go after you. And because, you know, what they do is they just grab you and pull you under and you drown. That's kind of, you know, because they don't want to eat you. They don't like your presence. And keep in mind, there are hundreds of hippos around us. And so the last thing I see is I put my paddle in the water. I'm literally looking down the throat of a hippo who has come at me at Mach 10. And then we actually get tossed, like, you know, 5 feet in the air out of the boat. And by the way, thank God my mom was in a different boat. I was with one of my teammates. We get tossed in the water, and I just look up and I see that it's maybe, you know, 100 meters to the closest shore. And I just basically like put my head down and swam. That was the best swimming I've ever done in my entire life. I've never swam so well and so fast. And, you know, but that was the moment of like sheer and ultimate terror, right? Because now I'm in the water swimming, completely exposed, knowing, having seen there's hundreds of hippos around me, potentially crocodiles everywhere. And I just need to get to shore, you know, and I'm making this big splash too, right? Which is like, hello, crocodiles, come and get me. But somehow, out of just sheer luck, we swam to shore at Mach 10 and then got out. And then, of course, we're on this island in the middle of the Zambezi River, and there's all these Cape buffalo on the island too. And I'm like, oh my God, like, here we go, Cape buffalo. You know, it's like never ending. And this was also in 1997. So this was like pre-cell phone, pre-whatever. We still had 2 more days on the river. So apparently, according to our guide, the hippo did chase our canoe for a very long while, and our guide was eventually able to recover the canoe, bring it back over to the island where we were, and where I had been sitting. And this was like an old school, super heavy, thick fiberglass canoe. Where underneath where I had been sitting, the hippo had come through, and there were 2 perfect giant holes where its tusks had gone right through where I was sitting. And I had this little teeny cut on my toe, and that was it, because he had come with so much momentum that by the time his tusks made it through the boat, I was already, you know, packing into the river. So, so we were on an island. Our guide literally patched up our canoe by duct taping some Tupperware lids onto the canoe. And we had to keep going on this river. You know, it was like no cell phones. No one was going to come helicopter us. So we had to keep going for 2 more days. And literally for 2 days, there were like 10 of us on the trip. Like, almost nobody spoke. Like, we just canoed along like quietly during the day, just like completely terrorized. And, you know, it turns out, of course, you get off the river. And like I said at the beginning, you learn that the Africans actually don't go anywhere near the river, would never canoe down that section of river. And that it was just, you know, our crazy tourist selves. The only positive I can say is we did early on the trip see some really amazing wildlife that we got very close access to. But that is become so secondary to the story because, you know, the hippo attack overtook it all. So my mom actually was still working as a journalist at the time, and she was a stringer for the LA Times. And so she actually wrote a story about it for the LA Times. And it's funny because we had just come off this big thing, we'd won a world championship. But the Hippo attack overtook all of that in terms of our stories going forward in life. So yeah, I survived a Hippo attack. The only lasting trauma I have about it is I am still afraid of sharks in the ocean. And everyone's always like, well, a fear of sharks is an irrational fear because, sharks really don't kill many people and whatever. And I was like, well, it's an irrational fear for you, but I have already been once attacked by a 5,000-pound wild animal. So for me, it is not an irrational fear. So for some reason, I'm not afraid of hippos because I'm not around them. But like what we have in Northern California that's equivalent is great white sharks. So I'm afraid of great white sharks.
Wow. That's so intense.
It was so intense.
And so was Kelly with you on this trip?
He wasn't. I did not know him yet. So
Okay.
I didn't meet, that was 1997. I met him in 2000.
So, because somewhere I read, I think it was in ESPN, but maybe I'm getting it wrong, that there's some correlation between the Hippo attack and Kelly, but maybe he was just speaking of.
No, I mean, I think it's a story he loves. My friends just relished in it. I actually have in my house, I have what we call the Hippo shrine, because for years after, anytime anyone would see like a Hippo figurine, they would send it to me. So I have I have the Hippo shrine. I probably have like 25 hippos made of all different materials. I have like an eraser hippo and a crystal hippo. And so anytime people are out in the universe, my friends, and see any kind of hippo figurine, they send it to me. So, we have a Hippo shrine in our house now.
So funny. So, okay, that's really overcoming adversity and challenges, and you got to do what you got to do. And obviously that experience has molded so much in your life. But before that, I believe it was before that, you also had cancer. Is that right?
Yes. When I was a junior in college, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer, and it was really pretty random how I was diagnosed with it because I had just gone to see a nurse practitioner from my normal routine OBGYN appointment. And you may not even, most women probably don't even notice, but you actually, as part of your normal routine appointment, they always, feel your neck and that's what they're looking for. So they just found this woman just noticed a little nodule and, no part of me at 21 years old even considered that I would receive the phone call saying you have cancer. Like, I mean, I don't think anybody is prepared for that phone call, but you are especially not prepared for it when you are 20 years old. It's just a completely different ballgame. And so I actually had a surgery. I went through radiation. I was a junior in college at that point, but I didn't end up. I just took 2 weeks off of school and then went right back to it. And it was interesting because I don't know if it was the age, but it certainly has shaped how I view my health for my whole life in a very deep way. But there also, because thyroid cancer, I learned very early on, is a pretty curable kind of cancer. So, if you're going to get cancer, it's not a bad one to get, as sad as that is to say. But I never, and I think it was just partly my age, I never really grappled too deeply, at least at that point, like with my mortality, which I know a lot of people do when they're diagnosed with cancer. I think I just was too young to even think that way. I was like, okay, well, this is sort of a blip in my life I need to deal with, and I need to have the surgery and go through radiation, and I'm obviously going to need to take thyroid medication for the rest of my life. But I was sort of like, okay, moving on. And it really wasn't even until my 30s that I was like, wow, okay, that was pretty heavy. Like, I had cancer when I was 21. But I mean, the biggest impact it's had is actually just sort of on how I take care of my body. I was always athletic, and I was on the crew team at the time I was diagnosed. So it wasn't as though I, was this unhealthy person who had a major shift, but it definitely has always really been in the back of my mind. And I have been motivated to always exercise and take care of myself because I'm like, you know what, I could still get some other kind of cancer, and there's tons of cancers and diseases you cannot control as a human, just, because of our environment or whatever, genetics. But I certainly am like hell bent on not dying from some kind of cancer or disease that I could have at least prevented. through healthy habits. So that has been, I think, the biggest impact it had on me.
Awesome. And then how did you wind up getting into working in the health and fitness space? Because you were already an athlete, you were already always athletic, and then you became a lawyer.
I know, which is a funny sort of side. But, when I was in college, I thought I would immediately go to law school, but then I joined this whitewater team. And so I thought, well, this is awesome. I'm traveling all over the world, and I do not need to go to law school right now. I just need to go do this. And this is an amazing opportunity I have to see the world and get some work experience on the side. So I just devoted myself to that. And so partly through my, childhood or high school and college, I was a rower. So I definitely sort of fell in love with like training and exercising at that point. And then that was furthered by my time on the national team, because then we really had to sort of get meticulous about our nutrition and how we were training and how we were training in the off season. And so really it became like a hobby for me, and it was always a passion, and then probably became even more of a passion after having cancer, because I also sort of understood like this bigger reason why it mattered. But it was always a hobby for me. I would like read health and nutrition books in my spare time. But then when my national team career came to a close, I thought, well, I don't really have a plan. And, I've been working kind of like odd jobs here and there, and I'd like to have a little more stability in my life. And I was always planning to go to law school. So I'm going to go to law school. So I went to law school, but I continued to be like a health and fitness nerd on the side. Like it was just always my passion and interest. If I were reading books, it was about nutrition or training or, how to run a marathon or do a triathlon or whatever. It was just always my side interest. And then I met Kelly, and that was also his side interest. So we shared that intensely. And I graduated from, yeah.
So with Kelly, he wasn't already like that. What was he doing at that time?
He was actually, when I met him, he was a kayak rep for a company called Necky, and he was traveling around. He actually was living in Colorado when I met him, and he was traveling between Montana and Texas, selling kayaks basically. So when we met, he moved to San Francisco. I actually was just about to start law school when he moved to San Francisco, and he did some kind of odd jobs. And then right at the end of my law school career, he realized that he wanted to go to physical therapy school. So we did this kind of, I think we overlapped in school for a year, but we definitely had this 6-year period of our life where one or the other of us was in some kind of professional school. I started practicing law, but I still had this passion on the side for health and fitness. It was like, what the kind of media I would consume and the books I would read. And I just always was really into it. And then I also, while I actually really enjoyed my law practice and I got a ton of amazing things out of it and I would never take it away, I always felt like a little bit of an outsider. Like, I think I knew that this wasn't going to be my life path. And I felt like a little bit of an outsider. Then in 2005, we started our CrossFit gym, and we did not start it at least we did not start it with the mind that it would become what it is today and that it would be this thriving business that we've owned for almost 15 years. I mean, that was not part of our mental calculus at all. In 2003, Kelly randomly happened upon the CrossFit website because he was looking for like how to do Olympic lifting with a kettlebell or just some obscure Google search he did. And we happened upon CrossFit. He and I started doing the CrossFit workouts at our local gym, really fell in love with it. And at this point, there was very few CrossFits on earth, definitely none in the Bay Area. And we thought, well, we started having some friends come train with us in the backyard, and we were just really getting into it. And we thought, well, there's nowhere for us to train and nowhere for our friends to train, and we can't train in our backyard all the time. We should start a CrossFit. So we put up this really rudimentary website, and literally San Francisco CrossFit was in a parking lot for the first 6 years of it's existence, which has become legendary, by the way, the San Francisco CrossFit parking lot. If you happen to be a visitor of it, it's like, it's like a badge of honor. We really just started it as a side business.
So the CrossFit parking lot, that is still around?
No, it's not around. It is lovingly named the Parking Lot of Dreams. And it was a great lesson for us in selling. And what I mean by that is, here we are in this parking lot. And mind you, the parking lot had a completely unimpeded direct view of the Golden Gate Bridge and is in one of the most beautiful places on earth. But nevertheless, we created an environment where people not only came and worked out in the freezing cold, dark, in the rain, and near dumpsters, but they thought it was cool. And so we realized that it's, so much of, I think everybody's right. It's about like the environment you create and how you sell something and how you can make something feel cool. It was also, it felt like we were all part of the emerging phenomenon that was CrossFit when it first started. I mean, when we first started, no one had heard of CrossFit, or if they had, they thought it was like a neoconservative military cult. So, there was, like I would tell some of my friends at my law firm, oh, I'm doing this thing called CrossFit. And they would go to the website and be like, yeah, okay, you are a weirdo. But, it was so, it's become so mainstream now, but then it was such a strange thing to be doing. So we just really opened our gym because, again, we had this like deep side passion for health and fitness. We'd really fallen in love with the CrossFit methodology and the workouts and the community that we created around it. We 100% did not start it to be or thinking that it would be something we would do like as a job to make money. That was never a part of the thinking.
So what happened?
Well, after in 2008, Kelly, by the way, at this point had graduated from physical therapy school and was working as like a traditional physical therapist in a clinic. In 2008, Kelly thought, you know what, I'm seeing all these clients. I think I could actually bring my physical therapy clients in-house into my gym. And so he built a little office there that is also lovingly known as the Pain Cave. And he started seeing, so he quit his regular day job first in 2008. And in 2008 is also when we started MobilityWOD. We started putting videos up on YouTube. Kelly was doing a little bit of traveling and teaching. So we felt like between my fancy lawyer income and this minor income we're making at the gym that we could make it work. I didn't leave my law practice in 2010. And that was when MobilityWOD had really started to blow up and was still not a business that was making any money, by the way. At this point, we're still just making free YouTube videos and making a little bit of money. Kelly was teaching some seminars and making a little bit of money. But again, like the gym, we did not start it as a business. We saw a problem and sought to solve it, and it ended up becoming a business. But it's interesting you mentioned that because I just was on a Facebook stream with some people the other day saying, oh, well, I'm an entrepreneur and, I'm not sure whether I should just quit my day job and go full throttle into this business idea I have. And, keep in mind that I am basically a uber practical person, hence my like path into law school and so forth. Like I am deeply a practical person, but I obviously think there are exceptions, but I am a huge fan of the concept of like keeping a day job and trying out a business. And what I said in response to this Facebook thing is, yes, I'm a fan of this idea. I think it works for most people. And, the only exception is if you are a hothouse flower, meaning that you're someone who can't work a lot, because if you want to work like I was working a full-time billable hour fancy law firm job and then running some businesses on the side. And that meant I really needed to work a lot. And way more than like an 8-hour day. So, for people who cannot work a lot and they know who they are, I think having a day job and starting a business is a no-go. But, for people who are willing to just crush themselves for a little while, I think because, for us, it was so nice. We did not think about making money for the first 3 years of our business. We grew organically. We would buy gym equipment when we had a plus in our bank account. We were able to focus on creating community and helping people and thinking about what we want to do. Like we really did not focus on making money at all for like the first 5 years of our businesses. And that's so freeing. We were able to make all these decisions, literally not based on making money. And that is really special.
It's extremely special. And I'm just aware of the time, and there's so much more I want to ask you to chat about. But within this last few minutes, we've talked about, you know, how you got here, but I never asked you at the beginning to actually explain where here is. So can you give my listeners an overview of really what you're doing today? And don't be humble, or, you know, like, let us know all the amazing things that you're doing, because you guys are up to some wild stuff, and I want my listeners to know about that.
Sure. I would say I spend 80% of my time running MobilityWOD. That's the bigger of our two companies. At this point, we have about 15 employees working for us, both in the Bay Area where we live and around the country, because working virtually is so possible these days. MobilityWOD is really a place where athletes and and that athletes meaning recreational, professional, whoever you are, can come and learn how your body works, be given tools about how to take care of your body. We also have tons of content on injury prevention, or tools and strategies for fixing nagging injuries. You know, our big sort of theory is that you really, as a human being, should be able to like take a crack at fixing your own body. We find that literally 90% of soft tissue injuries can be fixed yourself at home if you have a disciplined practice. So we have video content, we've written a few books, we teach courses for coaches. I spend about 80% of my time doing that. I spend 20% of my work time running San Francisco CrossFit. That is just a wonderful, thriving community for anyone who happens to pop into San Francisco. Even if you're not a CrossFitter, come by and visit. It just has a great vibe. It flies in the face of all the stereotypes of CrossFit that you may have in your mind. We're really welcoming. We are not aggro. We are not going to injure you. In fact, our whole mission is like CrossFit for life. Like, we want to teach athletes how to move well and understand how their body works so that they can keep doing this until they're 100 years old. So that's kind of our philosophy. We also have a nonprofit called Stand Up Kids. And Stand Up Kids is our mission is to convert kids in sedentary desks to standing, moving desks. We have about 100,000 kids across the United States. We've helped them move from sitting to moving desks. And by the way, important point, we call them moving desks because the goal of a standing desk is not to stand, it is to move. And so we're just chipping away at that slowly but surely. We would like to get public school kids in particular converted over, and we give grants every year to Title I schools, which are high poverty schools, to help teachers convert their classrooms from sitting to standing. We're always working on a variety of book projects. We just published a book called Waterman 2.0, and that was really just like a love letter for us to our background as paddlers. And it's a niche book for surfers and paddlers about how to take care of your body and train for paddle sports. So that was a fun little side project we did. And I'm on my way next week to go back to the Whitewater World Championships with my old team to compete as a masters athlete in Argentina. So that's where I'll be here soon in a couple weeks. So that's kind of what I'm up to at this point.
Awesome. So, as I said before we started, I would love to have you back for a master class where you can actually help my listeners get to know how they can fix their body at home. A lot of us, a lot of entrepreneurs, sedentary, and also stress, and all the things.
There's a lot going on. I completely relate to the entrepreneurial lifestyle and how stressful and challenging it could be. And I would love to come give some tips and tricks to help people survive entrepreneurship.
I mean, like, I have gear now that I'll have like neck pain or whatever before. I would have different pains in my body, and I would always think, okay, I got to go get to a massage therapist. I got to get to a massage therapist. I got to get to the right massage therapist, because sometimes you get a massage therapist, you don't feel any better after you just spent $120. So, and then I started doing CrossFit, and in my CrossFit gym, Kelly's face is everywhere with MobilityWOD. And so it's really, really important to my trainer, my coach, that we focus for a good part of the session on mobility. And it's like, since I started learning these things, and it's like with simple tools that who would have thought? I mean, you guys thought, obviously, but
Yeah, yes, we thought, but I mean, it really is, there's so much people can do on their own to take care of their own body and either fix little injuries they have or little pains or prevent injuries in the first place. You know, because I mean, the reality is we're all going to live to be 100 years old, man. People are living longer and longer. And, you know, man, the goal is to be as functional, as independent as possible as we age, you know? So it starts with taking care of your body when you're young.
yes. Even if we
Ish,
don't get
youngish. I'm
yeah,
youngish
yes.
these days.
Like compared to 100, I'm young, but
Yeah.
awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here,
Thank
Juliet. It's been
you.
an absolute pleasure and privilege.
You are so awesome. Thank you for having me, Nicole.